Imagine living in a quiet, picture-perfect neighborhood where the grass is always cut to regulation height, the mailboxes all match, and every driveway looks like it belongs in a car commercial. Sounds peaceful, right? It was, until the HOA got involved. Now, for those lucky enough to have never dealt with an HOA, Homeowners Association, let me explain. These people believe they're the kings and queens of the neighborhood. They enforce rules about everything. What color you can paint your front door, how often you mow your lawn, even what kind of car you can park in your own driveway. And in my neighborhood, the HOA was run by none other than Karen, a woman who looked like she stepped straight out of a luxury fashion catalog, but had the personality of a dictator. Blonde highlights, designer sunglasses, and a clipboard permanently glued to her hand. Karen was the self-proclaimed guardian of the community. Me. My name's Ryan. I'm a former attorney who specialized in property law. After years in the legal trenches, I decided to retire early, buy a nice house in a quiet neighborhood, and live a drama-free life. Simple, right? Except Karen didn't like simple. She thrived on control. When I moved in, I did something that apparently made her blood boil. I refused to join the HOA. "Mr. Ryan," she said, showing up at my door within 24 hours of me moving in. "This is a community that values standards. We expect every homeowner to sign the covenant." I smiled and said, respectfully, "No, thank you." That's when the smile left her face. "You don't have a choice," she hissed. "Yes, I do," I said calmly. "HOA membership here is voluntary. I read the bylaws before buying the property." Her jaw tightened. She muttered something about troublemakers and stormed off. At the time, I didn't think much of it. I figured she'd get over it. Spoiler alert, she did not. For the next few weeks, I started noticing things. Karen would drive by my house slowly, glaring like I'd parked a monster truck on the White House lawn. HOA flyers about mandatory compliance mysteriously appeared in my mailbox, even though, legally, they didn't apply to me. Neighbors whispered when I walked by. It was petty, annoying but harmless. Or so I thought. What I didn't know then was that Karen wasn't the type to give up. When Karen didn't get her way, she didn't just complain, she declared war. And this war? It was about to turn fiery. The harassment started small, passive-aggressive letters, then fake violation, notices taped to my door. One day, I came home to find a note in all caps. "Remove the illegal fence or face fines." Illegal fence? I didn't even have a fence. I laughed and tossed it. But Karen wasn't laughing. A week later, she cornered me in my driveway. "Ryan," she said, voice dripping with fake sweetness, "it would be so much easier if you just joined the HOA. Everyone else has. You don't want to be the odd one out." I smiled. "Karen, I'm fine being the odd one out." That's when her mask slipped. She leaned in close and whispered, "You're going to regret this." Chilling, right? But here's the thing, I wasn't scared. I knew the law. I'd spent years writing legal arguments about property rights. There was nothing she could do to me legally. Unfortunately, legality wasn't on Karen's mind anymore. Soon after that conversation, strange things started happening. My trash cans disappeared. My mailbox got smashed. Someone even dumped paint on my driveway. Coincidence? Maybe. But I had a strong feeling Karen was behind it. Then came the final straw. I found a letter shoved under my door that read, "This is your last chance to join the HOA. Refuse again, and you'll be removed." Removed? From my own house? I laughed when I read it. I even called my friend Mark, who's a detective, and joked about it. He said, "Keep an eye out. People like that can get creative." I shrugged it off. But Mark was right, because the very next week, Karen and her HOA goons took things to a whole new level. It was a Thursday night. Quiet. Calm. I was sitting in my living room, reading a book, when I smelled something faint, like smoke. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor was having a barbecue. But then the smell got stronger. I went to the window and froze. Flames. On my porch. I ran outside, heart pounding, and saw fire crawling up the front of my house, like a living thing. The dry summer heat made it spread fast, too fast. I grabbed the garden hose, but it was useless. The fire roared like it was hungry. I dialed 911, screaming into the phone. My house is on fire. Neighbors came out, phones recording, but no one helped. And then, I saw them, Karen and 2 HOA board members, standing across the street, watching, smiling. I'll never forget that look. By the time the fire trucks arrived, it was too late. My home, everything I owned, was gone, burned to the ground. I sat on the curb, covered in soot, watching firefighters douse the smoking remains of my life. And Karen, she walked over, fake sympathy plastered on her face, and said, "Such a tragedy. Maybe next time, you'll follow the rules." That's when I knew. They did this, and I was going to destroy them. The HOA thought they'd won. They thought I'd crawl away broken, homeless, and humiliated. What they didn't know, I wasn't just some random homeowner. I was the guy who helped write half the property laws in this state. And I had friends, powerful friends. While Karen and her crew were sipping wine and bragging in their HOA Facebook group about how the problem solved itself, I was already building my case. The next morning, I called Mark, the detective, told him everything. He said, "Ryan, if you're right, this isn't just arson. It's a conspiracy." I spent the next 2 weeks digging, pulled security footage from neighbors, got a copy of Karen's threatening letters, even found texts from HOA members in a leaked chat. Karen, if he won't join, he doesn't belong. Board member, we could make that happen. Karen, fire cleans everything. When I showed that to Mark, his eyes widened. Oh, they're done. And they were. The police raided Karen's house first, then the other board members. They were arrested for arson, conspiracy, and destruction of property. Karen's face, when they put her in handcuffs, priceless. The trial was brutal. The HOA tried to argue I had consented to community rules. I pulled out the bylaws and said, "Actually, I wrote the law that says you can't force HOA membership." The judge nearly laughed. The jury didn't take long. Guilty. On all counts. Karen cried in court, claimed it was all a misunderstanding. Too bad there were texts, videos, and a mountain of evidence saying otherwise. The HOA dissolved. I got a massive payout from the insurance company and a civil lawsuit settlement from Karen and her cronies. And the best part, 6 months later, I rebuilt my house, bigger, stronger, and with a giant NO HOA sign in the yard. Karen, she's serving time. The lesson, never mess with someone who knows the law better than you. Because if you do, you might end up losing everything.